I'm Teresa Wheeler, 32, standing in my parents' kitchen in San Diego clutching my sister's wedding invitation. Tomorrow is her big day, and I'm overflowing with excitement. My dress is ready, my speech rehearsed. Mom, I'm so excited for the wedding tomorrow, I say brightly. She freezes, her spoon clinking against her mug. Teresa, she says, eyes flicking away, it was last week. My chest tightens, my breath catches. The invitation slips from my hand, landing flat on the counter. I grab it again. Tomorrow's date stares back at me. What do you mean? I demand, my voice trembling. She murmurs, we sent the wrong date. It's done. My pulse roars in my ears. My family, mom, dad, my sister, had lied to keep me away. I think of the thousands I've poured into their lives, covering my sister's debts, paying for their vacations, always giving while they pushed me aside. My jaw locks, anger rising. I won't cry. I won't beg. Something inside me hardens. They think they can use me and then discard me. They're about to learn. I'm not that easy to erase. Later that night, I sit in my condo in the Gaslamp Quarter, staring at the invitation. Its elegant script feels like mockery, each graceful curve a reminder of their betrayal. How could they? Mom, dad, my sister, plan something like this? I toss the card onto the coffee table, my mind spiraling back through the years I spent as their safety net, always there, always giving. 3 years ago, my sister, then 27, launched her interior design business. She had grand ambitions, glossy showrooms, wealthy clients, but her first major project collapsed. A client backed out, leaving her with $10,000 in debt. I got the call at midnight, her voice shaky, pleading for help. I'll pay you back, she promised. The next day, I wired the money without hesitation. She never brought it up again, not even a thank you. I let it slide, telling myself, that's what sisters do. Then there was mom and dad's house. 2 summers ago, their suburban San Diego home needed major repairs, a leaky roof, a cracked foundation. $30,000, they said, or we'll lose it. I covered the cost, dipping into the savings I'd built from years of late nights as a tech project manager. Dad muttered something that vaguely resembled gratitude. Mom just nodded. I thought it might bring us closer. I was wrong. They never invited me to their Christmas parties, the loud, crowded ones where neighbors traded stories over glasses of wine. You're too busy, Mom would say, her tone clipped. Too busy or just not wanted. Last Thanksgiving was the worst. I'd driven 3 hours to see them, only to find the house empty. We're at the neighbors, my sister texted, no invitation, no apology. I stood on their porch, keys dangling in my hand, feeling like a stranger outside my own family's door. I'd funded their lives, paid off debts, covered home repairs, even sent them on their anniversary trip to Napa. But I was always the outsider. The one they called when checks bounced, not when there was something to celebrate. My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. It was my cousin Claudia, page 38, a freelance journalist who'd always had my back. Teresa, you okay? She asked, her voice soft but urgent. I told her about the invitation, the words spilling out in a rush. She sighed. I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but they planned it. Your sister said you'd overshadow her, your job, your confidence. Mom agreed. They sent you the wrong date on purpose. My grip on the phone tightened. Claudia's words cut like glass. My sister, the one I'd rescued from debt, thought I'd ruin her wedding. And Mom, who'd taken my money without hesitation, had stood by her side. I began pacing across my condo, city lights flickering through the windows. Every memory came back sharper now, every ignored call, every sarcastic jab about my fancy career. I'd been their bank, their problem solver, but never their equal. Claudia's voice stayed calm. You don't deserve this, Teresa. What are you going to do? I stopped pacing my reflection, staring back at me from the dark glass. They thought they could erase me from their perfect day. Fine. I'd show them I wasn't just their fallback plan. I'd show them who really held the power. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house, hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding with the weight of last night's revelation. Claudia's call had stripped away every illusion I had about my family. When I pulled into their driveway, the two-story house stood there, quiet, unsuspecting, a perfect backdrop for the storm I was about to unleash. I wasn't there to plead. I wanted them to face what they'd done. I banged on the door, each knock sharp and deliberate. Betty Wheeler, my mother 58, opened it, her eyes widening. "Teresa, why so early?" she asked, her voice tight. I brushed past her into the living room. Gerald Wheeler. My father, 62, sat with his coffee, eyebrows lifting in surprise. My sister, Vicky Wheeler, 28, lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. They all froze when I stopped in the center of the room, arms folded, gaze steady. "Why did you lie to keep me from the wedding?" I asked, my voice cold and controlled, like steel drawn from its sheath. Vicky's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "Mom," started Teresa. "Let's not." But I cut her off. "No. You sent a fake date." A thick silence settled over the room. Dad set his cup down, his eyes fixed on the floor. Vicky tossed her phone aside and sat up. "All right," she said, her voice dripping with defiance. "I didn't want you there. You always steal the spotlight, your tech job, your confidence. It was my day, not yours." Her words hit like a slap, sharp, raw, and undeserved. My sister, the one I'd rescued from financial collapse, believed I'd ruin her day. "I've given you everything," I said, my tone low, every syllable measured. "And you repay me by cutting me out." Mom stepped between us, her face hard. "Teresa, you're too independent. It makes us feel inadequate." Vicky deserved to shine. Her defense cut deeper than any insult. Dad stayed seated, silent, eyes downcast, his stillness a quiet betrayal. I turned to him. "Dad, you let this happen." He shifted uncomfortably. "It's not that simple," he muttered. "Not that simple." They'd erased me from a celebration I'd been eager to share, and he couldn't even meet my eyes. Every memory flooded back, every time I'd been their lifeline, their provider, their safety net. They had taken it all, and now they discarded me like I was nothing. My hands clenched into fists, but I kept my voice steady. Yelling wouldn't change anything. "I'm done being your fallback," I said, locking eyes with Vicky. She leaned back, smirking. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said. Mom nodded, her voice softer now. "We're family, Teresa. Don't turn this into a war." But it was already a war. They had drawn the line, treating me not as a daughter or a sister, but as a tool to be used and forgotten. I looked at them, Vicky's smug grin, Mom's strained composure, Dad's refusal to look up, and saw no remorse, only justification. I turned toward the door, each step deliberate, heavy with finality. "This isn't the end," I said, pausing with my hand on the knob. Vicky laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. "What you'll make us pay?" she sneered. Mom reached out. "Teresa, stay and talk." I didn't look back. They thought I'd cave like always, but they were wrong. I'd built my life, my career, my strength without their approval. They'd underestimated me, assuming I'd quietly swallow their betrayal. As I stepped outside, the morning air bit against my skin, crisp and cold. My mind was clear. They had built their comfort on my support. Now they'd see what happened when that support disappeared. The next day, I sat in my downtown San Diego office, pulling a folder from my drawer. Yesterday's confrontation, Vicky's smug confession, Mom's justification, Dad's silence, had only hardened my resolve. I wasn't here to wallow. I had a weapon my family never saw coming. I spread the documents across my desk, their paper edges cool beneath my fingers, and called Claudia Page. She answered almost immediately. "Teresa, how are you holding up?" she asked, her tone steady but laced with concern. I didn't hesitate. 5 years ago, Mom and Dad were drowning, medical bills, bad investments. They were about to lose the beach house in La Jolla. I bought it, $200,000 from my savings. It's mine, legally. Claudia drew in a sharp breath. "You own the La Jolla house," she asked, disbelief clear in her voice. They never said a word. Exactly, I said, my tone cold but controlled. I let them live there, rent-free, thinking it was the right thing to do for family. I paused, the memory stinging. After the wedding, I'm done being their doormat. Claudia's voice hardened. Teresa, that's your asset. They've taken enough. Hold on to it tight. Her words fortified me like steel. For years, my family had treated my loyalty as endless and unconditional, but the La Jolla house, that was my line in the sand. After we hung up, I dialed Linda Morse, my lawyer, 42, sharp, unflappable, with a mind that cut through chaos like glass. She arrived at my office within the hour, briefcase clicking open as she sat across from me. Let's see it, she said, her eyes sharp and focused. I slid the folder across the desk: deeds, contracts, receipts, proof of purchase. She flipped through them methodically, her expression unreadable at first. Finally, she looked up. This is solid, she said, holding up the deed. You own it outright. No liens, no claims. They have zero legal standing. A weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying loosened from my chest. They act like it's theirs, I said quietly. Living there, spending weekends by the water, showing it off like they own it. Linda's eyes met mine, unflinching. Legally, they're tenants at best. You want to assert control, I can prepare notices today, eviction if necessary. Her calm confidence steadied me. I'd poured years into my family money time trust only to be cast aside. This house was my leverage, my chance to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Get the paperwork ready, I said. I want it ironclad. She nodded, jotting quick notes. You'll have the drafts by morning. As Linda left, my phone buzzed again. It was Claudia. Teresa, she said, her tone clipped. I heard your sister's been hosting clients at that beach house, passing it off as hers. My grip tightened around the folder, jaw locking. Vicky flaunting my property to impress clients and prop up her fragile business, the same sister who'd cut me out of her wedding to shine alone. It was another slap, one more insult piled on betrayal. She'll find out soon enough, I said, my voice low and measured. Claudia didn't miss a beat. You're in the right. Don't let them guilt you into giving in. I rose from my chair and walked to the window. Below, the city pulsed with quiet energy, but my mind was razor sharp. The La Jolla house wasn't just real estate, it was my sacrifice, made tangible. Every late night, every dollar earned, every ounce of misplaced faith in a family that hadn't earned it. Vicky's entitlement, Mom's excuses, Dad's silence. They all believed I'd keep giving, keep forgiving. They were wrong. I had built my life and my success without them. These documents were my proof, my power, and I was ready to use it. They had pushed me out, but I'd make sure they understood one thing: I wasn't erased. A week later, I sat in Robert Klein's office, a stack of papers spread before me. The wounds my family left still throbbed, but today wasn't about pain, it was about closure. Linda Morse, my lawyer, stood beside me, her calm presence steadying my resolve as I prepared to cut the last threads tying me to them. Robert Klein, my financial advisor, slid a folder toward me. These finalize the closure of the joint account you opened with your parents years ago, he said evenly. And the $15,000 loan your sister took out. It's now entirely in Betty and Gerald Wheeler's names. They're liable for it. Not you. I signed each page carefully, my pen steady. That account, once meant to help Mom and Dad through lean years, had turned into their personal drainpipe. No more. My phone lit up with a text from my sister Vicky. Teresa, I'm sorry. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, her words ringing hollow. This was the same woman who had schemed to exclude me and laughed in my face when I confronted her. I set the phone down, ignoring the message, and turned my attention back to the documents before me. Linda caught the flicker of hesitation. Her gaze sharpened. You don't owe her a response, she said firmly. Stay focused on protecting yourself. I nodded. Her words grounded me. Vicky's apology was too late and far too empty. Robert shifted another stack of papers toward me. This locks your family out of all shared accounts and investments, he said. Your savings? Your assets? Everything is secure and untouchable now. His words built a solid wall between me and the years of exploitation I'd endured. For so long, I'd paid their bills, cleaned up their messes, even handled the taxes for the beach house they'd been secretly renting out for profit. They had pocketed the income while I covered the maintenance, confident I'd never say a word. Today, that ends, Linda said crisply. The loan transfer is airtight. If they miss payments, it's on them. I pictured Vicky's smug grin, Mom's rationalizations, Dad's quiet complicity. They'd treated my generosity as their entitlement, living off my property while expecting me to keep everything running. They'll have to figure it out, I said, my voice steady. Robert gathered the signed forms into a neat stack. You're completely independent now, Teresa. They have no access to anything. Another buzz from my phone, another text from Vicky. Please, I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's fix this. My fingers twitched, but I didn't reply. Her words weren't remorse, they were strategy. She was scrambling now that I'd stopped playing her game. I flipped my phone over and tuned back to Robert's calm voice. Your financial profile is secure, he said. No shared liabilities remain. A slow breath left me, the kind that feels like release. The weight I'd carried for years being their safety net, their bank, their silent support finally began to lift. This wasn't just about money, I said quietly. It was about reclaiming my life. Linda slipped her notes into her briefcase and looked at me with quiet certainty. If they try to challenge any of this, we're ready, she said. You're in control now. I felt it then, that quiet, solid power settling in my chest. My family had thrived on my generosity, on my silence, believing I'd always bend. But every signature today was a refusal, a declaration that I would no longer let them define me. I had built my career, my strength, my peace on my own. They had profited off me for long enough. No more. As I left Robert's office, my documents secure in my bag, my phone buzzed again. Vicky, Teresa, don't cut us off like this. I swiped the message away without a second thought. Guilt that was her weapon of choice. She thought it would pull me back, keep me tethered to their chaos. But I was done. They had drained my property's income, my savings, my trust, treating me as a resource, never a person. Now, with every tie severed, I was finally free. Free to let them face the consequences of their own choices. 3 weeks later, Claudia called. I was at home sipping coffee, the quiet morning sunlight spilling across my kitchen table. The weight of the past weeks still lingered. Freedom carried its own kind of heaviness, but I knew I'd made the right choice. Claudia's voice came through the line, taut with tension. Teresa, your sister's in trouble, she said. Vicky lost a $50,000 design contract. She and Scott are scrambling to cover their bills. I leaned back in my chair, unsurprised. Vicky's business had always been fragile, propped up by my money and my reputation, until I pulled the plug. They're feeling the pressure, Claudia went on. Scott's been asking around for new clients, but things aren't looking good. I set my mug down slowly, a grim satisfaction settling in. For years, they'd relied on me as their safety net. Now they were discovering what it meant to fall without one. That afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Scott Harper, Vicky's husband, 30 years old, his voice unsteady. Teresa, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. I had no idea Vicky planned to keep you from the wedding. I thought you just couldn't make it. His sincerity caught me off guard, but it didn't soften me. Scott? You're married to her, I said evenly. You didn't notice her lies. There was a pause on the other end, then a quiet, I should have questioned it. I'm sorry. I let the silence stretch. His regret sounded genuine, but it didn't change anything. They had all benefited from my exclusion, whether they realized it or not. Later that evening, an email popped up on my screen. Subject, Please, Teresa. It was from Mom Betty Wheeler. I stared at her name for a long moment, memories of her excuses flashing through my mind, the way she'd defended Vicky, the way she'd dismissed my pain as overreacting. Then, without opening the message, I hit delete. Her words would only be another plea, another guilt trip designed to pull me back into their dysfunction. I wasn't taking the bait. A few hours later, Claudia called again, her voice heavier this time. "There's more," she said quietly. "Your family's been talking about you in the community. They're saying you're selfish, that you abandoned them for your career." My jaw tightened, anger flaring in my chest. Selfish. After years of bailing them out, paying their debts, fixing their messes, even covering their taxes, they dared to call me that. "They're trying to save face," Claudia added. "People are starting to ask questions. Some believe them, but others, well, others see through it. It's stirring up noise." I gripped my phone, the sting of their betrayal cutting deeper than before. They couldn't control me anymore, so now they were trying to ruin my name. I stood pacing the length of my living room. The rumors hurt, yes, but they also clarified everything. My family wasn't just ungrateful, they were desperate, scrambling to shift blame. Vicky's lost contract, Scott's hollow apology, Mom's pleading email. It was all damage control. They thought they could guilt me, smear me, wear me down until I broke. But I'd spent years building my life, my reputation, my strength, without their help. Their lies couldn't touch that. Claudia's voice softened on the other end of the line. "You're stronger than this, Teresa. Don't let their gossip shake you." Her words steadied me like a hand on my shoulder. She reminded me that I wasn't alone. I thought of the community, neighbors, colleagues, friends, people who had seen my work, my integrity. Some might believe the rumors, but others knew better. My family's words were noise, not truth. I would face the whispers with my head held high and let their behavior speak for itself. They had underestimated me, believing I'd crumble under pressure. But I was done carrying their weight. They'd sown lies. Now they would live with the harvest. A month later, I was in a meeting when Paul Adams from security called. His tone was uneasy. "Teresa, your family is downstairs. They're demanding to see you." My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed calm. "I'll be right there." I excused myself and walked toward the lobby of my downtown office, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. They were waiting near the reception desk, Mom Betty Wheeler, her eyes red and swollen, Dad Gerald Wheeler, stoic but tense, and Claudia standing slightly apart, her expression unreadable but strained. Mom stepped forward first, wringing her hands. "Teresa, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "We're sorry. Can we fix this?" I crossed my arms, unmoved. Their apologies sounded rehearsed, not heartfelt, a last-ditch attempt to regain what they'd lost. Dad took a cautious step closer, his voice low and heavy. "We didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "Let's put this behind us." I shook my head slowly. Their words were too familiar, too late. Claudia, who had stayed silent until now, glanced between us, then met my eyes. Her expression was conflicted. "Teresa," she said quietly, "they asked me to come. I thought, maybe you'd listen." I trusted Claudia, but I wasn't here to bend. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and opened a video Vicky had sent me by mistake months ago. It was footage from her wedding, the one I was never invited to. "Claudia," I said quietly, "you need to see this." I hit play. The screen showed Vicky, champagne glass in hand, laughing among guests. Her voice rang out over the music. "Good thing Teresa's not here to steal my spotlight." The sound hung in the air like smoke. Claudia's face drained of color. She covered her mouth, eyes wide. "She planned it," she whispered, turning toward Mom and Dad. "You knew." Mom looked away. Dad stayed silent. Their guilt said everything. Mom's voice cracked. "Teresa, please. We're struggling. Let us stay in the beach house just for a while." I stared at her, disbelief tightening my chest. They'd rented out my La Jolla property for years, pocketed the profits, and left me paying the taxes and repairs. Now that their finances had collapsed, they wanted to move in as if nothing had happened. No, I said, my tone cold and final. That house is mine. You've taken enough. Claudia stepped closer, her voice firm and unwavering. Teresa's right, she said, facing them. You betrayed her and you're still asking for more. Her words were a shield, and I felt my resolve solidify behind it. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We're your family, she pleaded. Don't do this. But her words bounced off me. Family didn't lie, scheme, and drain me dry for years, then beg for mercy when it suited them. Dad tried again, his tone softer, searching for a way back. We can work this out, Teresa. We're sorry. I shook my head, the image of Vicky's laughing face looping in my mind, Mom's silence beside her dad's quiet complicity. They had chosen their side long ago. You made your choices, I said evenly. Now live with them. I turned to Paul Adams, the security lead, standing nearby, a steady presence through the chaos. Paul, I said calmly, please escort them out. He nodded, gesturing toward the doors. Mom's voice rose behind me, trembling and desperate. Teresa, don't shut us out. But I didn't look back. Claudia followed as I walked away. Back in my office, she touched my arm. You did the right thing, she said softly. That video, it's proof they don't deserve you. I nodded, the weight in my chest pressing and lifting all at once. The community might whisper, might even believe their lies, but I knew the truth. They had tried to break me, to control me, to use me, and I had built my life, without them, my career, my strength, my peace. Their apologies were hollow, their pleas were nothing. I wasn't their fallback anymore. Now they would face the world without my shadow to hide in. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of my La Jolla beach house. The ocean breeze wrapped around me, carrying the quiet freedom I had earned through hard-won battles. My life finally belonged to me, shaped by my choices, untouched by my family's demands. My career had soared. A recent promotion placed me at the helm of a major project, my confidence sharpened to a fine edge. Claudia and Linda, my steadfast allies, had become my pillars, valuing me for who I was, not what I could give. Over lunch last week, Claudia's grin was infectious. You're a force, Teresa, she said, raising her glass. Linda nodded, her smile warm. You've built something untouchable. Their words lit something deep within me, a quiet fire that reminded me how far I'd come by refusing to bend. Yesterday, an invitation arrived for Mom and Dad's anniversary celebration. Betty and Gerald Wheeler, still clinging to their illusion of perfection, had written as if nothing had happened. I sent a small gift in return, a polite gesture, nothing more. Their attempt to pull me back into their orbit failed. I had spent years propping them up, only to be pushed aside. That door was closed for good. Claudia later shared updates about my family. Vicky and Scott had moved into a small apartment, their finances collapsing after another lost contract. Their circle of friends had grown thin. People had begun to see through them. Mom and Dad faced their own reckoning, reputation tarnished, isolation creeping in. They had profited from renting out my house, leaned on me for years, and turned vindictive when I walked away. Now they stood alone in the aftermath of their own making. I rested my hands on the railing, watching the tide roll in. The waves whispered a truth. I finally understood their actions had consequences, and I was no longer the one who would shield them. Vicky's schemes, Mom's manipulations, Dad's silence. They had all tried to box me in, to make me small, so they could feel bigger. But I had found my value not in their approval, but in my resilience. I'd poured my heart into a family that didn't cherish it. That was my mistake, and one I would never repeat. My home, my career, my peace. They were mine, hard-earned, untouchable. As the horizon stretched endlessly before me, a deep calm settled in my chest. The sting of their betrayal still lingered, but it no longer held me captive. Claudia's laughter and Linda's unwavering counsel anchored me in the present. I was surrounded by people who lifted me, not drained me. My family's selfishness had cost them their community, their stability, and their daughter. I chose myself, and that choice brought me freedom. This journey taught me one truth. Your worth isn't what others take from you, it's what you create for yourself. I let my family define me for too long, but no more. Their betrayal exposed their true selves and unlocked my own potential. Don't let anyone dim your light to fuel their own. Stand firm. Own your value. Let those who wrong you face their reckoning. I did, and it changed everything.